In this corner, standing at 6'5", weight class unknown, but hailing from the city of sin, put your hands together for Jamison Welsh. And in this corner, standing at 5'10", weighing in at pounds, and coming to us from his super secret bunker with no AC in Tucson, Arizona, put your hands together for Luis Montemayor.
Welcome to a very special bonus episode of the Mixed Company Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Luis. Typically, I am with my co-host, Jameson, but today I'm rolling solo because some fans of the show invited us to do a special remote episode at the Tucson Celtic Festival. So we're going to check out what's going on today at the fest. We have a really special guest today, talking to the person that made this entire show possible. I'm going to be interviewing our producer, Jabari Davis, about the origins of the show, his love of boxing, and anything else we want to talk about today. Let's go.
Hey, Jabari Davis here, producer for the Mixed Company Podcast.
The idea for the show came from this man specifically. So he's the reason that we're here. He's the reason the show exists. So we're going to ask him a little bit about his history with boxing and where his love of it came from. So Jabari, we got to know, what is the first boxing match that you remember watching and loving?
Man, it would have had to have been... No, it's funny. I was going to say a Tyson fight, but it was actually a Sugar Ray Leonard versus Tommy Hearns.
Okay, how old were you then?
I had to maybe 6 or 7. So this is like little child at the family function. Everybody's getting drunk, having a good time, yelling, screaming, excited about their fighter and whatnot. We were a Sugar Ray Leonard household, but of course we did have some family from the Midwest that were back in Tommy Hearns. But yeah, no, it was a While I still get excited for fights, there's nothing quite like those old school fights in the 80s, whether it was, on pay-per-view or on HBO or whatever the case may be. There was just a certain vibe about it that, I'll be honest with you, I have not been able to recreate.
Did you guys actually pay for pay-per-view, or did you have illegal cable boxes? I think we can say now because the statute of limitations is passed.
When it was at my house, because my parents were goody two-shoes, it was legal. When it was at my uncle or my aunt's house, it was 100% the black box.
So what do you remember about the Sugar Ray Leonard fight specifically that still sticks with you?
I remember thinking, okay, wait a second. Because again, bear in mind, I'm a child. So Tommy Hearns is about 5, it at least appeared to be 4 or 5 inches taller than him. And I thought, well, there's no chance. He has no chance. The little guy's doesn't have a chance. So I naturally started rooting for him. And also because everybody else was rooting for him. I just remember thinking, I could never do this. Really, when it came to combat sports, while they were fun, they weren't necessarily my thing. I'm more of a basketball guy than anything else.
So you said you were a Tyson fan. Tell me about that fandom. What's the first Tyson fight you remember?
First Tyson fight I actively remember was Michael Spinks. Now I watched ones before that, but I can't pinpoint it. But against Michael Spinks, I think it was 1988, if I'm not mistaken. And the funny thing about that is, it only lasted something around like 85 seconds or like 90 seconds. It was definitely under 2 minutes. But what was crazy about that is my stepdad and my uncle, they couldn't get the TV to work. Everybody's there. It's a fight party, and like everybody is ready for this fight. The fight is approaching. They're trying. This is back in the day when you had cable companies. They drove down to the cable company because it was only a couple miles away. And by the time they got back, the fight came on and they had missed it. So they paid the equivalent of like $89 or something like that to also drive, deal with traffic, deal with a bunch of other angry customers. And then they got back for us to break down what took place.
So the people who actually saw the fight, did they enjoy it, or were they disappointed that it only lasted 80 seconds, less than 2 minutes?
I'm going to keep it real with you. Like, we can look back and we can act like, we were mad. No, everybody was happy and excited. They were like, this man just knocked this other champion out, or this other former champion out in less than 3 minutes. So people were excited. So, but then again, I didn't pay for it. So, yeah.
Good toss, Ref. Good toss.
I mean, all throughout the years, whether it was, like going from Tyson after he got out of prison, and then guys like Roy Jones Jr. and Oscar De La Hoya and Money Mayweather. It even though, like I said, I can't recreate that feeling, I still get pumped up for the events.
So tell me about your history with podcast producing, and what actually does a podcast producer do?
Babysitting and handholding. No, my history is I started doing it independently about 10 years ago. At the same time as I was just getting into covering the NBA, I ended up getting hired by Gannett and USA Today. Worked with them for a couple years, and then did podcasting on the side. But basically, slowly but surely, I ended up getting hooked up with somebody that works for iHeart. Had an opportunity to throw some ideas at them. One thing led to another. Here I am 4 years later. I've been producing podcasts, writing podcasts, hosting podcasts, you name it, across the board for iHeart for the past 4 years.
What made you want to start a podcast about boxing, and how did you get coming up with the idea of the Mixed Company podcast specifically?
So the Mixed Company podcast, it's very commonly known in amongst fight fans that I don't know how else to describe it. Race play is a part of the promotion. Like there's no other way to describe it. And what ends up taking place is you usually have a black fighter, you have a Latino fighter, or a white fighter, whatever the case may be. It's generally a part of the promotion, but at the same time, those of us fight fans that are truly diehard know sometimes those emotions can run over, and you don't always necessarily want to be in mixed company when you are podcast, or you don't necessarily want to be in mixed company when you are watching combat fights.
Jabari, have you had any experiences watching boxing in mixed company that were, let's say, interesting, of note?
I've had plenty, but the one that stands out is Mayweather Maidana 1. Are you familiar with that fight? Do you remember that fight and how it went down?
Refresh my memory.
Well, okay, so the reality with Mayweather is he was the perfect heel. Like part of why he was so great was not only was he an all-time great from a physical standpoint, but he knew how to play the game in a way that, I'll be honest with you, it's unprecedented. Part of in all likelihood, he grew up in the boxing world with his father as well as his uncle, being former fighters and trainers. But yeah, he was absolutely fantastic at it. So I say all of that to say the emotions were running high, for that fight. Maidana was seen as the guy, like, finally, we're going to shut this boisterous individual up. And what ended up taking place was I just happened to, my girlfriend at the time, a Puerto Rican individual, she said, hey, let's go to this bar. And I thought, yeah, why not? Let's go to this bar and watch it. Didn't think anything of it. Didn't really take into consideration that it would be potentially in mixed company with a fight and two fighters that already had high emotions. So we went to the bar, had a good time. The experience in the fight, had some good food. We're having a great time, laughing, enjoying it. Mayweather starts to put some distance between himself and make it obvious that he was going to win the fight. And then suddenly, I started getting some looks from some of the other patrons. And then, at a certain point, you think like, whatever, we're all just having a good time. But then you get more looks. And then as the fight's wrapping up, I'm like, hey, it's probably time to go. So I don't know if you're familiar. This is going to be a washed reference, but I don't know if you're familiar with the movie The Color Purple. There's a scene in The Color Purple where one character slaps another character, and the character that got slapped is notorious for going off. So when that character gets slapped, everybody says, "Oh, time to go!" So they start packing up the piano, pulling cords out of the wall, and everybody going. That's what it was when I started getting those looks, and it was very obvious that Floyd Mayweather was going to win that fight. So we paid our tab and we, excused ourselves, went on about our business, and everybody made it home safely that day. That's not always the case. Hence the Mixed Company podcast.
So on that night specifically, what percentage of Floyd Mayweather fans were in that one bar?
Me, my ex-girlfriend, the friend that we brought, and one other patron. Everyone else was for Maidana.
That's it, huh?
That. I mean, I'm not a math major, but I can do math on. I can do that math. There were about 40 people in there, so yeah.
What do you like most about producing podcasts or hosting them, or just being involved in them?
I like people exchanging thoughts. Whether I agree with them or not. If someone is having an earnest and honest conversation, and it isn't, like I don't want just debate for the debate sense, but like if someone, if people are going back and forth, exchanging ideas and thoughts, I'm generally going to be a happy camper. And if it's related to a topic that I thoroughly enjoy, it's even better. So while you're not always going to get that, I've been fortunate enough to where most of the shows that I've produced, whether it's this current boxing one or NBA related ones or comedy podcasts or history podcasts, there were things that I was that I was actually interested in on a personal level. So it just makes it that much more rewarding on a professional level.
Jameson and I have a lot of thoughts about the state of the boxing world today. A lot of champions aren't fighting as often. Maybe it's all about the money these days. What's your take on how boxing is now compared to back in your day?
It was always corrupt, and it's always going to be corrupt because the reality is there are no true. Well, no, there's sanctioning bodies, but there's no like true governing body that is in control of anything. And anytime you have just different factions and different little emperors running things, there's going to be corruption. There's going to be that element of it. My hope is that we just continue to get good fights. When we don't, or when we have like the situation with Tank, in the prime of his career, fighting somebody like one of the Paul brothers, that's annoying. But I'm still, I'm still like I'm not going to lose my mess about it. I'll just say, please come back and fight real fights. That's all I'm asking for. So like the state of affairs is that it's still it still sucks on some levels, but it's still one of the greatest sports, if not the greatest sport that it is in existence.
Which fighters are you excited about today?
Man, Abdullah Mason excites me. I like him a lot. I mean, I'm a Bud Crawford guy. I recognize you're probably asking for younger guys, but look, Bud's still going to be my guy until he hangs up those belts, hangs it up like entirely. That's my guy. But if we're talking about younger guys, I like Abdullah. I want to see him continue to progress. Quite frankly, I want Boots to show me something. I don't want to see Boots in against tomato cans. I don't want to see Boots in against guys that are inexperienced. I don't want to see guys like Boots in against just some run-of-the-mill guy. Let's start seeing those true greats, those young guys like Shakur Stevenson. Let's see them continue to fight one another, continue to fight to challenge one another, and continue to strive for greatness. I don't need to see you just on a money hunt because, quite frankly, while I respect anybody's desire to do that, I'm not going to put my effort or my resources towards that.
Do you think the era of the Black American heavyweight fighter will ever come back, like we had most recently in the '90s?
It's always a possibility because look, folks are still athletic, but the reality is, a lot of those fighters are playing football now, or playing basketball now, or playing other sports, or maybe doing something completely different, or that's not going to leave them with limited facilities and things of that nature. So the truth of the matter is this: yes, it's possible, just not likely. There may be a diamond in the rough, but in terms of having like 6 or 7 or even upwards of 10 guys in that category that are truly great, I don't necessarily see that taking place.
How do you feel about the Tucson Celtic Festival so far?
It's been great. You've got to borrow a line from the show. It's a mixed company, and I can appreciate that. Even if I'm not familiar with it, I appreciate learning about and witnessing other people's heritage and their culture and their history. And this has been illuminating in that sense.
Thanks for joining us on this special remote edition of the Mixed Company Podcast. Shout out to the Tucson Celtic Festival for inviting us to do a remote show here. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and find us on YouTube. We have a playlist under the 19 Media Group's channel. That's our network, so please hit like, subscribe, follow the show, leave us a 5-star review. We work hard for y'all. Thank you so much, and salud.